Joining us now, Congressman Florida. That's a state where the president pulling ahead slightly, but it's going to be very close. Congressman Firebrand, name of his new book, by the way. Matt Gaetz, Congressman, great to have you back.
Hey, thanks for having me. If you hear that buzzing in the background, I'm in my Capitol Hill office, and all I know about the buzzing system, they mean different things like opening or closing business at a house, but if there are 15 in a row, that means there is a nuclear missile headed at the Capitol. So as long as it stops before then, we're fine.
So you keep that buzzer on, Congressman. Look, we got a lot to talk about today, but the first thing I've got to do is I've got to get to the initiative that you're filing here accusing Bloomberg and his minions of bribery in Florida by paying off felons, paying their fines in order to get them to vote for Biden. What is going on there, Congressman?
So this really begins with the Washington Post acquiring the memo that the Bloomberg associates sent to raise money for their project. And the underlying premise of the memo is that it's very difficult to persuade people to vote for Joe Biden. That is a very expensive, very difficult endeavor. What's far easier is going and finding people and giving them money to retire their debt to society through the form of restitution or court fines or costs who might already be registered to vote, and then have the ability simply to mobilize people not around a candidacy or a set of ideas, but around the notion of getting their restitution paid. That is the definition of bribery in Florida election law. It's Chapter 104 of Florida statutes. You cannot offer anything of value to someone with the goal of impacting whether or not they vote. And so, like, here you have two principal things. One is paying off someone's restitution a thing of value. Well, of course it is. It would be a thing of value if you paid off a car loan or an auto loan or a parking ticket, frankly. And then the next question is it being done to impact the vote? And that's why this memo drafted by the Bloomberg associates is the smoking gun piece of evidence. Because, by the way, they're not paying off everybody's felony fines. They're just going to pay it off for a select group of black and Hispanic felons who need their fines paid off. Now, that is the definition of paying the money to impact the vote, and they admit it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. In Florida, Congressman Matt Gaetz, so I'm a former felon, an ex-felon, whatever you want to classify it. I'm registered to vote. I'm Hispanic or African-American. I'm already registered. But in order to vote, according to Florida election law, I have to have made restitution. That's unlike some states that have already waived that. But in Florida, it sounds like what you're saying is, the various fines you have to pay or restitution to victims and things of that nature, court costs, those have to be paid before your voting rights are reinstated, right? So
in Florida, we take it literally when we say pay your debt to society. I mean, we mean pay all of it.
Right. So if that's not paid, even though I'm a registered voter, I'm ineligible to vote until that's paid, right?
Correct.
So now Bloomberg's raising money to pay whatever my restitution might be, debt to a victim, court costs, whatever. They're going to pay that, get that off my back, and in exchange for that, I vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, that you would vote, right? Because they've literally written in their memo that according to their modeling, black voters in Florida are going to vote Democrat 90 to 95% of the time. Now, I don't believe that, but the fact that it's their assumption is the evidence of the intent to use this money to impact whether or not these people vote. And this is not the way we do democracy. People should be voting or not voting based on universal standards, not like whether or not you fit into some like subcategory for some oligarch billionaire to come and like help out your personal balance sheet. So in exchange, you go and cast a ballot. That's what I have a problem with. Like if you're a white former felon in Florida, you're not getting the Bloomberg payment. And if they were just paying these off for everybody with, we would know what they were doing. We would know that they were trying to impact the election, but it wouldn't be so blatant and so obvious as is reflected in these documents reported by the Washington Post.
Right. So they're only paying off the debt of those that they have a higher propensity to vote Democratic, so they're targeting them. So that's why you have a real case here, because if they were just saying, hey, look, we're going to go to Florida and we're going to raise money, pay off everybody's restitutions, so everybody can vote for whoever you want, that would be a little different. That would be a tougher argument. But the fact that the internal memos that the was leaked that the Post got a hold of basically is saying that this is a bribe, pay off my debt to a person who is profiled to be a likely Biden voter. That's. I mean, I don't know how much more plain that is. How do you stop it?
I mean, like if Sheldon Adelson was going to wipe out people's debts at his casino if they voted Republican, I mean, they would have the FBI encircling his home like it was Roger Stone 2.0.
Right, exactly. At 5 a.m. Banging on his door. So how do you stop this, Congressman Gaetz?
Well, the Attorney General of Florida has jurisdiction because this is activity that is crossing jurisdictional prosecutorial lines. So she could direct the statewide prosecutor to investigate this. And look, there may be a perfectly reasonable explanation. I always think people are presumed innocent, but I think these are fair questions to ask given the evidence that is now available in the public square. So I am preparing sort of the legal basis for that. I will be transmitting that to her today. I've already spoken with her last night. She's a pretty effective law and order attorney general, and I'm hopeful that she'll take this up and give it the thorough review that it calls for.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. I'm with Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. I'm so glad, Congressman, that you were able to file this and maybe get it stopped. Tell us, before we get to your book Firebrand, tell us about the state of the race right now in Florida.
The president is surging with Hispanic voters. Miami-Dade County is an area where Joe Biden is going to substantially underperform Hillary Clinton. And frankly, it's because a lot of these first and second generation Hispanic Americans fled socialism. Their families fled socialism, and they're not ready to embrace it here. And they don't trust Joe Biden to stand up to the woke-topians that want to bring the policies of Portland and Seattle to the rest of the country. A lot of our great Hispanic voters in Florida are builders, not burners. They don't like this, whole Antifa tearing things down, attacking our country. A lot of these folks chose to come to America because they love our country and our values, and they want to follow our laws and rules, and they want to build a better life here. And God bless them for their willingness to do so, and for having chosen America, maybe just a generation or so ago. And so I think there is a patriotic flair in Florida we're starting to see that will help the president. He'll be in Florida on Thursday. I suspect he'll get a great reception.
So just looking at the numbers, and I know you're crunching these for some time, are you confident right now that Trump is going to carry Florida when it's all said and done, and all the mail votes come in?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to stay outside the margin of fraud, but we've got pretty good elections officials in Florida. Here's what I'll tell you. In 2018, I was very involved in Governor Ron DeSantis' campaign, and we never saw a poll with Ron DeSantis in the lead. We saw a few where he was tied, but in almost all the surveys, he was down anywhere from 2 to 8 points. But we knew that Election Day mobilization gives us an advantage. In Florida, and frankly in a lot of states in the Midwest as well, we had that big Election Day turnout. Ron DeSantis wins the governorship by 30,000 votes. I think the president can motivate our base even more, and it's my expectation that he will win Florida by a larger margin than he won it last time, which is about 130,000 votes.
John Fredericks Radio Network, we're with Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. My family going to Fort Myers for a baseball tournament for my son, Joseph, left-handed pitcher who'll be at JetBlue. They leave actually this afternoon. I would go with them, but Trump coming to Virginia, Newport News on Friday. I'm the MC there, so I'm staying back. But they love going to Florida. He always pitches.
I'm glad you're staying back for my buddy Scott Taylor. I write in my book about the need for Congress to stop some of these endless wars that go on without focus, without a real vision. And Scott Taylor was just a great American in the Congress, and we hope to have him back in the Congress, and we think he will be back in the Congress. But he brought that Navy SEAL perspective, and he fought with us to try to reassert congressional war powers, constrain the authorization to use military force, and to really execute on the Trump doctrine in the world that isn't the, invade everywhere, invite everyone view of conservatism.
And Representative Matt Gaetz releasing his new book yesterday, September 22nd, called Firebrand, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the MAGA Revolution. And it's a pretty in-depth but funny account of his time in the D.C. swamp, like we've all been immersed there. Matt Gaetz, one of President Trump's key supporters in Congress, outlining this, and a regular guest on Steve Bannon's War Room impeachment during that time, and led the impeachment fight. Matt, your book out yesterday. It's called Firebrand. Great title, by the way, fits you. But I remember Bannon telling me early on, he says, hey, watch this guy because he's a mover and a shaker. You were the guy that went down into the basement when those things were first going on, right, that kind of shook things up. Remember, Schiff had the secret meetings, and you led the effort to go down there and open up the door, right? Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. I write in the book about the strategy and actually our friend Steve Bannon's direct involvement in the strategy to start taking direct action. I think too many Americans look at their congressman and say, what in the world do you do all day? Do you really go and fight for me? Are you there to make my life better? And as Adam Schiff was down in that basement, we have to admit it was a pretty good strategy for him because he could curate leaks and get the media to do his bidding. And so, though I'm only in my second term, I don't hold any leadership positions in the Congress. I did lead over 50 of my fellow members down there to jailbreak the truth and to actually get what was going on in front of the American people. And once we were able to showcase this total house of cards that Adam Schiff was building down in that bunker, I think that we got the American people on our side and we prevailed in the impeachment battle. It's going to take that kind of will, that kind of energy to ensure that we get the full benefit of President Trump's second term. That's why I think we need some more firebrands in Congress. We need to change the way this place works.
Matt, what inspired the book?
The belief that the energy of Trump's populism has to endure beyond President Trump. He's created a political realignment where now the Republican Party fights for the working man and woman of this country. We don't sell out on trade. We don't engage in these frivolous pursuits of regime change. And we also, I think, want to be productive in our economy. And that has to live beyond Trump. My hope is that by shining a light on some of the great populists we have in Congress and also some of the ideas like taking on big tech, taking on the cancel culture, that we'll be able to sustain that political realignment and really drive forward with a new America First vision that can unite people.
John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. Matt, as you went through the book, for people that are looking at it, you can get it on Amazon or your favorite bookstore, Firebrand by Matt Gaetz. Give us a little taste of, other than you leading the charge to break into Adam Schiff's bunker in the basement, give us a little taste of other things that we're going to find in there.
So President Trump always likes to be a good friend and advisor in every aspect of your life. So President Trump has called me before on airplanes, in nightclubs, and even to give me advice with girls. So folks will get a real clear understanding of our relationship. I remember at one Christmas party at the White House, the president proceeded to constantly tell my date that she could do better than me throughout the entire evening. And that's just kind of the way he is as a buddy and a friend. And I think it's actually a pretty charming view of him as well.
Well, he did marry up. So I'll give him that much. So he did. Many of us, I have certainly. So whenever anybody marries up, I certainly understand that concept. So getting dating advice from the president always helpful. And well, he certainly has some experience there back in the day. Are we going to get a coronavirus package, an extension of the PPP?
No, unfortunately, our last real chance to leverage that would have been in the legislation to keep the government functioning. Late last night, you won't believe this, Nancy Pelosi puts this bill on the floor where we just got the last text for it 31 minutes before the vote. It was over 150 pages. It spent $1 trillion, and the leadership of both parties expected us to go vote yes on it. I voted no. Like, we need to do things different in Washington. If we're in Congress, we're on the board of directors of the most powerful country in the world, and we allow ourselves to be treated like toddlers by Nancy Pelosi, where she can just jam us with these bills, say, oh, well, it does some good things for farmers and military, obviously people we love, but like at the same time, we have an obligation to review what's going on, not just surrender the power of our people to the leadership. And so that was a frustratingly just bad, missed opportunity, in my view, to actually provide provision for our people, get PPP done, get some rent relief done, help with individual assistance if necessary to bridge the gap. Like, if your job is illegal right now, it is not your fault. You have not made some bad choice, like, along the way. We wouldn't have expected this. And so that's why we have a strong country, to take care of our people in these time of crisis where it's their no fault of their own. But no, instead we just passed a continuing resolution to have Washington continue to do the same things the same way, and it was disgusting.
There was a leak out that there was a number of vulnerable Democrats in Trump districts that were going to get together with Republicans to push out of committee a separate, clean PPP extension. Any truth at all to that, Congressman Gaetz?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see that come to fruition. All I can tell you is that it was more of the same on the floor of the Congress, and that it was I think, unfulfilling of our duties. Fortunately, we at least got the Senate willing to fulfill their duties and take up a vote on the president's nominee for the Supreme Court. And, you know, I'd probably leave you with this. All these Republicans that didn't like Trump, like, how would they have felt if Hillary Clinton had made these 3 appointments to the court, right? That could have reshaped jurisprudence in a negative way for a generation. President Trump is delivering on his promises. This nominee to the court, I think, will energize the base. I think it'll energize the movement. And if Democrats do what they did to Kavanaugh, they're going to see the same kind of backlash from just regular people in this country that believe in fairness and equality and some sense of honor.
Congressman Matt Gaetz, we're out of time. I want to thank you for being with us. And hey, read his new book, Firebrand. Great account of the MAGA movement, his relationship with the president. You're going to find all kinds of good and funny snippets in there. And I remember the days during War Room impeachment there at our studio in D.C. where he would just drop in unannounced on the Bannon show for a cup of coffee, right? Congressman, remember that? You would just stop in. It was like, well, look who's here. Thank you for being with us. You can get Firebrand, Amazon.com, or your favorite bookstore for Firebrand. Matt Gaetz, John Fredericks Radio Network.